So, Tim, opener,
Yes, sir. Yeah,
fishing opener.
the
Uh,
fishing
did you get out?
opener.
How about that opener, huh?
That's an opener. I did not.
I thought so, and that's why I
Dude,
also turned it
broke
into
my heart.
Eaters, this topic.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
broke
man.
my
Tell
heart
me.
because it's the first time I didn't get out on opener since I can't remember when.
Yeah.
I thought so I just have a little boat. I've
Hmm.
had bad luck with boats. I've bought a couple of used boats and my boats crap out and then I have to get rid of them, which
Hmm.
is not supposed to be the case. People are supposed to be able to buy shitty old boats and then you just hold on to that shitty old boat until you get a chance to get a new boat
Right.
and then you upgrade. And mine
Yeah.
keep crapping out. The
God
first
damn.
one, the lower unit went out, and the second one, it was like an engine rebuild. And both of the
Hmm.
fixes were more expensive than I paid for the boat in the first place.
Right. Right.
And I'm just like, F this. And the lower unit one also cracked the transom welds. So it was like getting an aluminum welder involved
Oh,
as well, because basically the back of the boat was like cracked.
and the transom part was what's the
The
transom again?
transom is the whole back of the boat.
Jesus.
So like how the boat is shaped, you got like that kind of canoe point,
Yep.
and then the back is the flat part. The
Yep.
transom is that black part or that back part.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the back of the boat, like where the welds met the sides, were
Yep.
cracked
Damn.
because of the lower unit. When it was driving, it would go and it would just
Oh, it
jerk
would
hard
jump.
and it cracked the welds.
Damn.
Yeah, so that boat was pretty nice. I didn't mind that boat, but then the other one was like fiberglass, and it was like I didn't like the boat enough. It sat too low in the water. It was like an old bass boat that if I backed up and there was any wind, it took water on because the waves would just come up over the back of it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm not into this style. But both of those crapped out, and now I have just a little tiny boat. If anybody's looking for like a newer style, it's a Pelican Bass Raider is essentially what I have. It's like a 10
Mm-hmm.
foot long pontoon boat,
Mm-hmm.
but there was like super high winds and a little
Mm-hmm.
boat with just a trolling motor on it. High winds are not my, cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean you have limited power and not to mention the size and stuff
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We've
you
been
get
having
any
some really
any
windy
decent
weather.
size of waves can come over the top and start filling this boat in, and it doesn't take many waves. I don't have like a bilge pump or anything. Like if it starts taking on
Right.
water, I don't know how much water it can take on before it sinks. Maybe it won't
Don't want to
actually
find
ever
out.
sink, but I don't really want to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No. Fuck that.
especially since we have videos and uh,
Yeah.
I bring out a lot of electronic equipment with me. My fishing stuff can handle going underwater. The electronics, not so much.
Yeah, the stuff that is documenting what you're doing for real AFTV cameras, etc.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
for
didn't
sure.
get out, and then I was thinking about going and fishing the river, but it's been so cold early
Yeah,
and the water's so high. I was like, I don't even know what's going on. So I was like, I'm just gonna get stuff done around the house instead of
yep,
going and taking some casts at the river and maybe try again next week.
right,
So
right.
yeah, fishing opener was pretty uneventful. But I've heard it's kind of been tough for a lot of people just because it's been weird.
Yeah,
It was
because the
cold for
weather's
a
been
long
weird,
time.
right?
Yeah,
That's what you mean?
cold for a
Yep,
long time. Yep. And then it
yep.
got hot like the last week.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
then it went from like so it's still like an early spring thing to, I guess they're transitioning now because the water's heating up fast because all of a sudden it's, 80.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually like if you're hearing this and you didn't hear episode 44, go back because we talked about being an adaptive fisherman and like a lot of this came up. That was actually the reason why I thought of that topic is because our weather's been crazy up here. So you're somewhere out there in the country and you've had stable weather and your fishing opener was great. Please come and share it with us. We'll read it on the podcast if we see it fit because it's been crazy weather up here. Tim, thank you for bringing up the video. This the day after this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast on the day that it comes out, go over to our YouTube channel, Real AF TV. Remember, Real like Fish and Real. Look us up, subscribe, because we are going to be launching our first video. Finally, Real AF
Yes.
TV is really going to have fucking TV out there,
Right.
because Tim's crappie spawn is going to go up,
Yep.
and that was the whole reason.
Oh, and you can see the
Oh,
boat. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
if
yeah.
you're interested in what I'm fishing in, that's what I use in the video.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see you'll be able to see the boat. You'll be able to, not from like a wide angle or anything, but you'll get it. You'll get it. Just hang in there
Right.
for the 20
Yep.
minutes or whatever it turns out to be. Or, I forget. It's
It's right around
about
there.
20 minutes. It ain't
Yeah.
that big. Nice digestible size. But the whole reason, all that's connected to this is that we were going to do this topic eventually. It was going to be titled different, but I felt like it was such a good fit, and that is eaters. Like, I'm talking about crappie, right? The crappie video that's about to drop on YouTube for us
Yep.
is eaters. I mean, you even say it in there. Like, you know what you're out there to do.
Oh yeah, I'm out there
And
trying to catch those fish to eat.
yeah, and we've
those
talked
fish.
about openers, that you've been at and stuff like that. Like, we've talked about openers and walleye. We've done specific podcasts on crappie and walleye, and it's those two fish that really, I think, opener probably was for this year. Is that safe to say?
Crappie probably, yeah. Crappie kind of the spawn happened a little bit later. Like some of the other years, we have been fishing crappie that are spawning on the opener.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember hitting some even as late as Memorial Day, but
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah,
just like
sure.
a couple still hanging around,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be definitely one of these years, depending on where you're fishing, where the water is like,
Right.
I think I heard like some of the up north lakes, it was like, Final Countdown was playing in the background. Well, like, it was like Thursday, and they're like, oh, it looks like the ice is going to go off, I think.
Oh my God.
So it was like
That's
crunch
crazy.
time. It was right there.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, definitely crappie and walleye and pike too. Like
Okay.
some people don't eat pike because they're harder to clean with the bones and stuff,
Sure.
but they're good eating fish for sure. The
Yeah.
meat on pike is awesome. It's a nice white fish too, like, or the
Sure.
meat is like a nice clean meat, but the fish are slimier than the other ones. They stink more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's an extra Y bone, or like an extra bone that pokes out, and so they call it the Y bone because it kind of makes a Y, so it's more of a pain in the ass to clean.
Right. Sure.
So if you're willing to put in the time, you can get good fillets off a couple of those. Plus the limit is up to 10 fish on most
What?
lakes now. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was like 2 or
Dude.
3 years ago that they changed the limit to most lakes being 10 fish a person.
Yeah, inside Minnesota. It was
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
wow, holy shit. And
Yeah.
obviously we always talk a lot in Minnesota because that's where we are and that's what we know. And that, man, you blew my mind with the pike. 10 thing.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
no idea. I was just
Yeah,
like, God damn.
you gotta check your regulations, because like the lake that I
course.
fish mainly is still at 5,
Okay.
because they're trying to, I think, make it more of a trophy pike fishery. So they have regulations where they're like, don't keep all of them. Like we encourage you to keep most of them that are small, and you
Yep.
can keep one that's bigger if you want to. But
Gotcha.
like the other lakes are that same thing where it's like keep 10 that are small or 9 that are small, and you can have one big one if you want to.
Right. Okay. And so for the people listening outside of Minnesota, quick, you want to go over opener, and also for the people outside of Minnesota that are listening, what is opener to you? Because Tim, let's just clarify for the listener, like what's opener for us?
So opener for us, and from a technical standpoint in Minnesota, opener is when you can legally keep walleye and northern pike, and you can target largemouth and smallmouth, largemouth and smallmouth bass. So you can target
Okay.
I say those two specifically because like even though they're not technically a bass, like rock bass, white bass, those are bass technically.
Mm-hmm.
So you can fish for them anytime. Like they don't
Mm-hmm.
have a season.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's you can keep walleye and northern and you can target bass, but you
Yep.
can't keep bass yet. You got
Yep.
to wait 2 weeks before you can keep bass, but most people don't keep bass anyways. They look at you crazy when you keep a bass. But if times are hard and you want to eat some fish, bass are easier to catch than walleye.
Right on.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what it is. It's
Yep.
opener is
Exactly what I think.
the midnight on Friday every year. So it's like that. I think it's like the second Saturday in May is what it
Mm-hmm.
always ends up being, pretty much. I
Okay.
think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And the crappie come along with it. Or it depends on the weather, right? Because
Yep.
crappie's always open season. Like there's no season for crappie. They're always open, but
Yep.
sometimes the crappie fall in there. And that's why I put in,
Right.
for me, as we get into more of the eaters type topic, it'll be crappie, walleye. I kind of just focused in on them because again, a lot of people don't eat pike. We'll get into that, but it's always here. It's always walleye. Oh, dude, Andrew Zimmer responded to Andrew Zimmerman responded to Andrew Zimmer. Jesus, what am I doing here? Bizarre Foods guy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He responded to one of my questions on his AMAs on his
Nice.
YouTube channel. And
Nice.
I asked, I was like, okay, I'm from Minnesota. How can we just pull the fillet off the walleye and throw the rest of the fish away? It was the sickest answer, dude. I'll put the link in the YouTube video. So if you're listening to this on Amazon, you go over to the YouTube link, or go
Yeah.
over to YouTube and check in the description. It'll be on there. I'll link to it because he basically goes, has a head on it. The entire country. He's like, it's not just us in Minnesota because he's from here too.
Yeah.
Now he's like, the whole country does that. All of the United States. He's like, if a fish has a head on it, that's it. People don't like the head on it. And then he goes into he's like, here's how I like to cook it. I asked about roe and he's like, yeah, sure. If you catch a female and it was a great response. And it
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, perfect. Dude, I'm so excited to hear somebody with cred
Yeah.
back me up on my thoughts because I watch all those travel videos and I'm just like, how come we're not? And he just goes, cooking a fish with the bone in is so good. And I'm just like, yeah,
Really.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
right,
that's going
because
on the
like
fishing goals
that's what
this
they
year
do
now.
with trout and stuff.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
they'll like a trout, yeah, because they clean it different. Like they'll just slice it down the belly, because the bone structure is different. So they'll like slice it down the belly, and then they'll like make one cut, and then they pull like the jawbone or whatever, and
Oh,
like it's just like brrrt, and like the everything like comes with it. I think the spine maybe comes. I don't know, dude. Maybe they do pull out the bones like that, but they
yeah.
leave
Like
all
you
the
think it just
skin and like
basically
everything
comes.
intact. But cooking at
Mhm.
the bones. Okay, hold on. I'm getting a little bit off track. I gotta ask you, what did he say about the roe? Remember, we caught that walleye one time,
I
and it had
know.
some roe in it, and we were like, should we eat it? I don't know if it's safe. What did he
Yeah.
say?
So the main thing, like that was one of my main motivations behind it.
Yeah,
Honestly, that was one of the main motivations because I was just like, what if you catch one with bro? How come we can't just eat more of the fish? Like it was in the question. And he goes, oh yeah, I'll take the roe. I'll just throw it in a pan, a little brown butter.
oh, he cooks it.
Yeah,
See, I think we were thinking about like you eat it like this with sushi. You know, I never
yeah.
thought about cooking it. Like I
Me
was
neither.
in my head, I'm like, they're gonna pop.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna fry
Yeah.
it, and it's just gonna be like, "Bup, bup, 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 bup,
Yeah, and
bup."
it's all gonna turn to shit, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
no. Yeah, he has an answer. And
he's
yeah,
just
that's
like,
what it was.
"Oh,
So he's
dude,
he's like,
dope."
I'll
Just
cook it
like a
up.
little oh my gosh. Dude, you have no idea how many crappie I catch with roe in the spawn.
Yeah. And I think as long as you're
Because
just checking that the fish is fresh, which is totally part of what the research that I did, just to quick, like, not to intervene the flow, but like I went to the U of M and I got
yeah,
all this information and it was totally just like, yeah. if the fish looks good, eat
That
it.
that's awesome, dude. And for those of you out there that don't know, roe is the eggs. We're talking about the fish eggs.
Yeah, we fucked that up in the last episode, so thank you for saying that, Tim, because or was it I can't remember if it was the last episode exactly, but it's been one of the last 2 episodes where we just said row and then moved on. Yeah, because we were talking about Dickhead in Indiana,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
Dickhead
taking the
poacher
roe.
guy.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, and we just said row and moved on, but yes, thank you. Yes, it's the eggs and the egg sac, the roe sac
Right,
is like it fell out of that walleye. We didn't sex
right.
it.
We were
We
like
didn't
cleaning
figure
it.
out
Yeah,
whether it
we
was a
were.
male or female. We were just like, "Nice fucking walleye, we're gonna smoke this bitch."
Yeah, and it was kind of weird too because if I remember correctly, it was kind of like a weird time in the season. Like we were not expecting it to have any eggs, but it did.
Right.
So then
Yeah.
we were like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
And
Yep. It fell out and
for
we both were surprised. That's
right,
all I'll say about the roast
yeah,
back on that fish.
yeah. And since things were late this year for conservation purposes, just so people know, like if you're out there fishing for walleye, it's probably a good idea to try to not catch the like if you know that like the ice just went out or it's super cold where
Mhm.
you're fishing, it's probably a good idea to try to not catch the walleye on their spawn because
Yep.
walleyes have a little bit harder time spawning than some of the other fish.
Okay.
Um, Crappies, dude, different story. I do not care. I will eat them. It doesn't matter. Like they're trying to have, like they're up there to spawn, which is, they're trying to
Mhm.
lay
Mhm.
their eggs and have babies and whatever. And I'm just picking them off their beds and
Yeah.
just being like, whoop, no babies for you. It sounds kind of cruel, but it's the same as catching them in the summer, man. Like
Yeah.
I've been fishing the same lake year after year, catching my limit and then being done with it. And the population is still stellar. I'm,
Yep.
not seeing like a downsize in the fish. Like it's the same thing every year. And as a matter of fact, like I'm just finding more and more spots to catch them. I used to only catch them in like, well, I think they were always in different bays, but I'm finding them all over the place.
Yeah.
And they're like half of the spots that I fish them, like nobody else is even touching those spots.
Sure.
So there's, I mean, everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. They
Yeah.
got good populations. I can't talk. If you're on a lake where you're like shoulder to shoulder with all the other boaters and everybody's grabbing your limit, maybe then think
Mm.
about it. If
Sure, sure,
everybody's
sure.
taking, 10 fish a person and you guys are just going crazy,
Yeah.
that might be a problem. But for the most part,
Yeah.
who cares? I'm just throwing that out there, you know, so
Yeah.
in case we do have new fishers
Mhm.
listening,
Mhm.
being like, should we be taking them if they're trying to have their babies? Panfish, sure. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But
Yeah.
walleyes, a little bit tougher spawners than some, which I
Mhm.
mean, and in the long run, that might not matter that much either because they stock a lot of lakes, but they don't stock lakes with full grown walleye for the most part. They stock them with yearlings, which
Yep.
are relatively small, and you got like 3 years until they're eaters. So if you
Right.
take too many of them, you're going to be catching nothing but little guys for a while.
Yeah, right, but that's a perfect transition to eaters. Like talk eater size because smaller is eater in a way, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm going to leave that in your hands. Cuz I know that you can explain that better than I can.
right. Yeah, smaller for the species. Like you don't want it to be too little and you don't want it to be too big. Like anything that's I mean even if you look at the regulations will help you understand them a lot. A
Mm,
lot of
good point.
places, there's like a slot limit where they're telling you you can only keep in this size. It's
Mhm.
like if it's too small, you can't keep it. If it's too big, you can't keep it. We will let you have one over a certain size.
Sure.
Um, like off the top of my head, I always check the regulations before I go out again because
Yep.
I fish other lakes sometimes, so you forget the numbers. But I want to say,
Right, because that's also a good point again, just quickly, like, hey,
yeah, yeah,
remember different bodies of water, different regs. Sometimes you just gotta
right,
keep it in
yep.
check.
And a lot of times, if there are special regulations on the lake, they'll post it at the boat lift, but it
Mm.
doesn't always
Mhm.
say that because sometimes there's like more than one public access as well. So sometimes one has better information than the other, and you never know. A storm
Right.
came through and blew a sign over. There used to be a sign there. The DNR is not going to let you slide just because you were like, "Oh, the sign got knocked over," and they're like, "Well, that's not our fault.
Right,
You
right.
have to know what you're doing."
Yeah,
But
yeah, for sure.
I think it's for walleyes. I want to say I know it's 5 fish, and I want to say it's you can keep anything under. I want to say it's like 22 or 24 inches.
Yeah. I mean, you're going off
So
memory of the past. Just you got it.
yeah, yeah. So it's like you can keep anything underneath that, and then you can keep one that's like over 26 or something. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that these numbers aren't even close to right, but it's like that where
Right.
it's like if you end up catching one big one, we'll allow you to keep that one big fish
Yep.
if you want to.
Mhm.
Um, and then, keep the other one smaller.
Sure.
So, but
Yep.
for the most part, if you're trying to be like good conservations, like you're allowed to keep that one fish, but a lot of people that fish often won't keep that bigger fish.
Okay.
But even for me,
Yep.
sometimes when I'm like having a rough day and I get one decent one, I don't
Yeah.
know if I think I kept one walleye over, in the big size one time to eat.
Yep.
Um, just because it wasn't doing so well.
Yeah.
After the fight, I was just like, well, it's gonna die anyways, I think.
Ah,
So
sure,
I'm just
sure.
gonna,
Yep.
no point in wasting these giant, beautiful fillets. But yeah,
Right.
like you said, eater fish are smaller, but like for the species, but
Right.
that's kind of up to your discretion as well. Um,
Yeah.
when they're talking about like smaller fish best for the population, if you can handle it, catching your limit of like smaller fish and harvesting all those is going to be better for the population as a whole because the bigger fish have better odds of mating, they can lay more eggs and all this other stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
But obviously, nobody wants to clean a bunch of little tiny ones. So, like,
Right.
even in the crappie video, you'll see I catch one that's a little bit small. I go, he's going back.
Right.
And then there was one that was big, and I was a little bit iffy on it, and then I kept it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it
But
ended up being your limit sort of situation. Like if when you'll see in the video how it kind of unfolds.
yeah, yeah, and I ended up running out of minnows, so it was like that one. They're they're healthy fish. They can handle being in captivity for a while, especially since I had it in a basket, so it's in open flowing water. It's
Right.
basically just in a jail cell in its
Right.
own habitat. Like it's not
Yep.
that bad for the fish. It has space to move.
Right.
And that big one, I probably would have let go if I could have caught more small ones. But I ran out of
Yep.
minnows, and then I was like, well, I'm keeping all of these. So,
Right.
so it all depends on your situation. But yeah, for the most part, eaters are just trying to keep that nice size. Like I think a
Yeah,
lot
like a
of
nice middle size almost, right, too? Because
yeah,
I say small, but I said smaller, and I meant smaller as in, like, you don't wanna keep the giants, you don't wanna keep the trophies, you like,
right.
typically, that's not necessarily the good eater, and for, the purpose of what I'm talking about, going when I went to the U of M, I looked up some EPA stuff, some NOAA stuff, like, I was looking into all this stuff, is like, fish got mercury in them. Fish got
Yeah.
PCBs in them. Like the bigger they are, the more time that they've had to build up these chemicals in them. These chemicals that aren't really good for you at all.
Right.
The bigger they are, the more time they've had to build that stuff up. Is what I'm trying to say. And so like,
Yep.
not only is letting that trophy, or say we'll say trophy, or that big walleye go good for the population of the fish, it's kind of like just don't eat it. That one's been eaten for a while. That one's been
Yeah.
ingesting the smaller panfish for a while, and it's had more time to build up the mercury in its meat.
Yep. Yeah, and the body of water can also influence, how much stuff they
Yep.
have in it.
Sure.
Like the
Yep.
lake eye fish is nice clear water with no natural inlets. Like it,
Hmm. Hmm.
those fish I trust to be clean. The
Sure.
Mississippi River, where I'm fishing next to the one time I went out there and got a little bit of footage on a the box of a butt plug or something. Like you're you're fishing next to that random garbage, and the water's just filthy, and who knows where all that runoff's coming from, because of
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
winter, the ice melt and the snow that's pulling all this crap into the river as it melts and stuff. So some of the bodies of water are definitely different, but just get
For
to
sure.
back to the size of the fish. Like a crappie, general rule of thumb, kind of like 10 to 12 inches in there.
Nice.
That's kind of what you're trying to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 14-inch fish is a very nice fish, and you can still keep it if you want to. There's no rule that says you got to throw it away.
Right.
It's just that, like, when you're catching, a couple of 14-inch fish, some of those are like, that's better to throw back than not. But again, your
Mm-hmm.
call. And then with walleye, I think right around like 18-inch, 19-inch, those are like perfect eater size fish.
Yeah.
Maybe like down to 15 even. Like you still, because of the walleye's body structure, even some of
Yeah.
those smaller ones, like a 15-inch fish, that's still a decent fillet. You're still gonna get good
Mm-hmm.
meat off of it.
Yeah, they can still get
Um,
wide for sure.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
and they're long. It's from that tail fin to the front. The
Right.
body shape is kind of
Yeah.
like a little torpedo. So
I was
you're
gonna say
getting,
they're yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly what I was gonna say. They really have a pointy kind of longer head on them. And to go back to the beginning when it's like cook it with the bones in and head on, like, fuck it, it'll be good. There's a lot of
yeah,
fish there in the head of the. I'm not saying that it's gonna make a difference in the how much food you get off of it. Sure, cut it off. But I'm making a point that there's a lot there in the head. Cheeks,
mm-hmm.
all right? You're not
Oh,
gonna really get a cheek out of a crappie, but you will out of a
out of a
walleye
walleye.
typically, right?
Yep, yep. The smaller ones are still a little bit hard, but they're like little tiny pearls. That big one I had, they were
Mhm.
like freshwater oysters. I think that's
Damn,
what they
yo.
even call them. Yeah, they're good, nice texture, and it's just a one singular muscle. It's not flaky like the rest of it. Because it's just
Yeah,
that
that
muscle
big
that's been.
ball. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Also, I don't wanna make this, like, sound negative or whatever because, like, I brought up the PCBs already and the mercury and stuff like that. We'll talk about that more. Fish is really good to eat. I'm not trying to make this sound like
Right.
a shitty
Yeah.
situation. Like,
I
ew,
may.
everything's
I'm.
polluted. Humans are fucking up the water. Don't eat fresh fish. No, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm not crazy like that. All
I.
the heart health and the B vitamins and the omega 3s and all that shit. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot
fish
of
are
good in
great,
it
just so
too.
you
Yep.
know. But
Yeah. I may have said this on the podcast before. I can't remember. But there's an episode of Sea Lab 2021
yeah,
from back in the day where I believe like Stormy electrocutes himself or something, and then he's like unconscious and he's in this dream state. And there's like this whale talking. It's not a whale, it's like just another big fish talking to another fish, and
mhm.
he's got a low voice, and he's just like, did you know that the average fish has more mercury in it than an anal thermometer? Would you eat an anal thermometer? And then the little fish is just like, no. And then the big fish just goes, I would. And then eats the little fish.
Oh my god, I do not remember that episode. That is hilarious. I would laugh harder, but I'm still recovering from 2 weeks of chest congestion. It'll sound horrible on the mic. So I would.
I would. And then just inhales them.
It sounds like you've talked about that before on the podcast or not talking about fish, but god damn, that's funny. So let's talk about mercury. Actually, the methyl mercury is what is typically found in fish. I guess that is the more lethal version of mercury. I
Oh,
don't know. Like there's also different versions of water. Like there's a such thing as heavy water. So I didn't get into that
it makes
far.
sense. Like I don't know what that is, but I know that there's hard and soft water.
Right.
So I would, yeah, I guess like
So
it doesn't shock me, but I've never heard of it. So
yeah, so I guess it's methyl mercury technically, and that's the real bad shit, I guess. But it's a heavy metal. Like it's a heavy metal,
heavy
and
metal.
fleshy bodies don't do good with heavy metal. Like that's pretty much what it boils down to. Like, yeah, man has figured out a way to harvest mercury, and fuck, it got in the water system.
Right.
But the good news is you can usually get rid of it. That's pretty much what my research said. Is just like, if you're healthy and you're good and you're for some reason eating so much fish that you get mercury poisoning, just stop. Your body should take
Yeah.
care of it. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, shit, dude. I didn't know
Right.
that. I thought you were fucked.
No, I've heard of that too. Like you can get super sick, and if it keeps going on, then you're screwed. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I just heard about like a little bit of this mercury poisoning because I heard that there was a FedEx driver that had a hazmat, like a hazardous material
Yeah.
box that was
Yeah.
mislabeled, and it was like a just normal box or whatever, and he was going to
What?
like lift it up, and it like popped open on him and all the shit fell on him, and it was like all the recycled pieces from the old thermostats, because all the old thermostats have the
Mm-hmm.
liquid
Mm-hmm.
mercury in it, because
Mm-hmm.
whatever heat it gets to is how that like moves. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
set the thermostat. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and he like opened that up, and like all these like recycled pieces of little mercury like poured all over him, so he's got like liquid mercury like raining down on his head.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, and then they're
Fuck
just
that.
like, well, yeah, and I guess they shut down the whole plant. They're like, we need to the
Right.
not ship out packages until we get this shit figured out. We can't have
Right.
more
Until we
people
can
getting
contain this
mercury
fucking mercury.
poisoning because people don't know how to mark their boxes correctly.
Jesus Christ, dude. That's fucked
Yeah.
up.
Yep. So go fishing. Your odds of mercury poisoning are less.
Are way less than that. And the other thing that the worry here with, getting into the bigger fish, eating more of the bigger fish, we'll say, is the PCBs, which this is my favorite definition, and I grabbed this one. This is a group of man-made organic chemicals consisting of carbon, hydrogen, and chlorine. Chlorine, no, that's chlorine atoms. And I was like, organic, huh?
Organic.
That sucks.
Right.
Oh, so you can just spray these things on your organic food? It's cool.
Yeah, that's what I was
It's
thinking.
still
Like,
organic.
it's organic. That's the first thing that popped into my head. It's organic. Did you not
Me
just
too.
spray a bunch of chemicals on them? They're organic chemicals,
So
idiot.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, those it's just another one of those things. And it was crazy to read about that because it's like, it's a liquid. It's also like basically wax. It's not flammable, has a high
Right.
boiling point. It's very chemically stable. You're just like,
Oh,
yeah, well, I see how it was very useful. Like, it's just non-reactive. Like,
right.
it doesn't fuck around. It just doesn't. It's just itself, and that's it. But that's also why it was so widely used. But they don't make it anymore. It was only from 29 to 79. But of course, 1979 wasn't as long ago as you might want to think it is. It's still, you know, fucking with the
Right.
fish.
So, not to not to derail this a little bit, but I
No,
almost
this is
choked on
fine.
my soda. And anybody watching on YouTube, I would like to explain myself because sometimes in my head I'm thinking about stuff and I crack myself up. So, what in my head, I was picturing like somebody looking at some tomatoes, and it's like an organic farm, or like you could apples, whatever you want to fill in. They're just like looking, they get to pick their own at this organic farm, and they're looking at them and they're like all shiny and stuff. And they're
Mhm.
like, what? I thought these were organic. Like these not supposed to shine. This is not.
It shouldn't be
And then
that
I
shit.
just pictured like some dude with like a like 80s like hair band mullet style thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's just like heavy metals, totally organic. Woo! And then,
Woo!
woo! Call it heavy metal.
Heavy metal. And then slaps you in the face with 3 titties.
Right. Brum, 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 brum. So yeah, sorry. I know it wasn't like the funniest thing in the world, but just in my head,
You were taking a
that's
sip at the right
I
time
was
when
taking
that
a
hit your
sip,
head.
and then my dumb brain goes, "What about this?"
Just to be clear, those are not that heavy metal. Like the PCP, it's not
the
organic.
the
Don't take the
PCP.
yellow PCP. It's the bad stuff. It's the green one you
The
want.
angel dust.
No, the PCBs are not mercury. It's the PCBs and mercury that are together. Like those are the two chemical groups that build up in fish. So it's
Mm,
separate.
right.
But I get where your brain was going.
Yeah. Oh, I just pictured like heavy metals being organic. That's all I was talking about.
Oh, okay, I got you. I
Yeah.
got you.
Just
I got you.
it's after you said it was organic, then I like my brain was just like, "Oh, whole new world here." And it just happens so fast and sometimes I catch myself off guard where it's just such a dumb idea. I
So
don't
dumb.
know. So dumb.
You're just like, well, I got to go with it. Um, so with you being the more avid fisherman and going out on opener
Mhm.
more often, or catching the crappie spawn whatever time of
Yep.
year it is, you know, eating more fish than me out of the
Yeah.
lake, out of bodies of water that are out there. It was like going through this, I'm looking at all the research and I'm just like, well, it really boils down to like most people are good if you're eating 2 meals of fish a week. Even you, Tim, are
Right.
you eating more than two fish meals a week?
Nah, my wife doesn't really care for fish, so it's kind
Yeah.
of I'm really only eating fish when I'm around my parents, which in the summer is like most weekends. So we'll fry fish during the
Mm-hmm.
weekends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, excuse me. But yeah, no, she's not into fish, so I don't eat fish at home a lot.
Yeah.
But I'll
No,
keep
me
it
neither.
and keep it in the freezer and then I'll cook it up and stuff.
Yeah.
So but no, yeah, not a lot. I like to
Yeah.
try to keep everything like I don't really try to eat anything twice in 1 week,
Right. I hear you.
you know? So
Exactly. Exactly.
so I'm
That's
always
exactly. So when I saw that, I was just like, damn, are people really going out and catching fish? Like, do you catch your meal every day? If you do, please come tell us.
yeah,
It's
dude,
really
like if
if.tv/contact.
if I was single, I bet I would eat fish a lot more
Yeah?
because well, it's for me essentially, I mean, I don't need to pay anything. I can go catch fish
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with just the fishing license, buy that
Mm-hmm.
license.
Yeah.
I'll probably go buy more bait and stuff, but I don't need to. I can go catch the fish without it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was single, for sure. If I was single, honestly, like I'd probably have a dope boat. So daycare is expensive, but uh,
Yeah, for real, for real.
but yeah, for sure I would eat more fish. But like I'd still probably try to keep it in that same guideline. I don't think I'd be trying to toe that line where I'd just be like, hey, if I eat 3 or 4 meals a day and then I get mercury poison, I'll just back it off a little bit. Like I'd try to not get mercury poisoning.
Right, 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 for sure. I mean, and with the PCBs, again, I'm not trying to beg on, w- generally speaking, we don't know a ton of what the PCBs could be because the way it's studied, it's hard to specifically tie it to it. It's one of those situations. But like, it's probably a carcinogen, just given all the results that we have so far. It messes with your nerves like mercury, immunity, your gland system, all this shit. You'll feel like shit for sure.
Right, right, right,
And those
right.
PCBs are not something that we necessarily think we can get rid of, like the mercury, which is good. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, but still, fishing is good. Eating the fish is good. I'm not trying to be the downer ass person because the majority of people are good. It's really about people who are trying to get pregnant, kids under
Oh yeah.
15, and kids under 15, because those are the things. It's just like everything you read about this PCBs, of course, the mercury, the heavy metals, like it fucks with development.
Mhm.
So anyone under 15, right? Still in that
Yeah.
like heavy development stage.
There's
People
a
trying to get
lot of
pregnant, force
there's a
development, all
lot of
development. That
stuff.
is development.
Right, there's a lot of stuff for development that you should do your best to try to keep an eye out. I know that I'm not the best at it, but like I just heard this last week that I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but there are so many microplastics in all the food and stuff. I don't know if it
Oh
gets
yeah.
better if you go organic and stuff, but there's so many
No, it's
microplastics
not.
that the average person
Yep.
ingests a credit card worth of plastic a week.
A week? Holy
Dude, a
shit.
week, a credit
Yeah.
card worth of plastic a week.
I didn't hear that, but yes, I
Yeah.
have heard about the and it's all because of the
And
it's
I thought that like amount was crazy. Like, no,
yeah.
that's crazy. And then like I looked into it myself too.
Yeah.
And what I found on Google was that. So maybe the sources I found were wrong, but that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just
and it's
gnarly
because of the
stuff.
process, right? Like
Yeah. And the
the
plastics can
factory has a machine that packages the spinach into a plastic package that throws a
right,
plastic
right.
wrapper on top
Yep.
of it, and it glues it to the top. And inside the glue, there's plastics that keep it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh fuck, yeah,
Yeah. I was thinking about
you're
that the other
right.
day when I was like,
That
yeah, I
like
got that
fresh
easy
off the.
open. I
Yep.
got like the easy open like string cheese, and there's like
Yeah.
those little plastic strings, and you're like, I think that got on the cheese, and then you're like looking at the cheese, and you're like, I can't see it anymore.
Yeah.
And then you eat it, and you're like, I didn't taste it, and it went down fine, but I
Yeah.
probably ate plastic,
Yep.
So yeah,
PCBs,
microplastics
same
everywhere.
thing. Same
And I
thing.
heard that the
It's like the same thing.
microplastics can like, cause weird stuff in
Yep.
development. So yeah, it's
We're
development is we're just not meant to be eating plastic, so it's gonna do shit to you, you know?
yeah, we're talking the same thing.
Right.
100%. We're talking
Yep.
the same thing. The thing is it's probably easier to get microplastics than it is to get PCBs out of fish.
Right.
Like that
Right.
that's seriously what my research came down to is
Yeah.
like really it's not super bad. In fact, like even in people who are under 15 in pregnancy situations, they were just like, have a serving of crappie every week. Like, just have one serving of crappie every week.
Okay. Yeah.
You
That's
know what I
easy.
mean? That
Yeah.
serving of crappie does not have a credit card worth of plastic in it,
No,
unless
it's
you were
like
just.
only it's like the size of a credit card, but thicker. I think the same with fish is the same with any meat, and they say like a serving is like the size of a deck of cards.
For fish?
I think it's like with every meat, with
Oh,
steak and
with every
fish and
meat.
everything.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
I
I think
did.
the
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, did it say?
Yeah, so I got serving size. There was a serving size. So just so you know, the Minnesota DNR, and I'll put this in the link. I'll put this link in the description of the YouTube video too. They have, um, sort of like an eating guide. It's a weird way to put
Okay.
it, but
Yeah.
they have a guide. And it's the Minnesota DNR. So I don't know, if you're listening in Kansas and if they have one or not, but hey, whatever, check out what the Minnesota DNR's research has turned up. But essentially, it just boils down to like the serving size is based on your weight, your person, like
Oh,
you as a person. So like
then
if you're 170 pounds, a serving size is 9 ounces before it's cooked. So like raw 9 ounces of fish.
okay. That's probably like 4 fillets if you're looking at like a small.
Yeah,
Wait, was that half pound of meat?
9 ounces is over half pound because right, because
Oh yeah,
9 is
16. Yeah.
18. Nine
Yeah.
times 2 is 18. A pound is
Yep.
16.
Yep.
So you're looking at close though. So just do the quick
Yeah.
back of the napkin in your head. What were you?
Yeah,
Because
so
that
probably
was where I need you.
yeah, so
What do you
probably
think
like
that is?
yeah, probably like 2 or 3 fillets depending on the size of the fish. Maybe 4, if you're talking like sunfish or bluegill,
Mm-hmm.
probably 4 for sure. Um I would say crappie, like a good sized crappie, maybe 2, depending on how good the person filleting is. And then yeah, like a walleye, you could get that much off of one fillet for sure. And then
Sure.
that's probably the healthiest for you anyways, depending on how you
What's that?
cook it, get that walleye out, make sure it's nice and dry.
Yeah.
Parmesan crust that thing, cooking in the oven.
Oh,
That's
hell,
probably the healthiest
it
way to
is
eat it.
actually because they recommend poach, broil, or grill
Yeah, because
because
everything kind of like runs and drips out of it.
yeah, 100%. You're right because that is the thing is like all of this. It's just like you know where all that shit's getting stored in the fat. So
Yep.
if you let that fat boil out or, do whatever. So I did find one I did find a source that was like, well, don't deep fry that shit. And I was like, well, yeah, because you're deep frying it in fat. Where's the fat going to go? And then,
Yeah, you're sealing
well,
it in.
I saw a source too that was like, deep fry it. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
really?
fuck. Yeah. So I got
Just do it.
contradictory
I
information on
mean,
deep frying.
I think it's probably because like you are sealing that stuff in, but I think they're, taking in account that you don't have to cook it out. They're probably giving you those numbers like you can have this much fish and you'll be okay. Seal it in.
Ah,
You're going to
uh
be all
huh.
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the person that wrote this. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like if you cook it in the
Yeah.
oven or broil it, you can have a little bit more.
You can eat as much as you want. Yeah. No, I'm totally like that's our interpretation of it. Of course, we're not the fucking University of Minnesota by any
Right.
means,
No,
but
I'm no
100%,
scientist.
I get what you're saying. Is there like the research shows, you poach it, broil it, all that stuff. You get all the fat that you can off of it, but you trim it down when you're filleting it. You take the fillets and you start trimming it down. You do all that you're lessening the amount. So yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I
Yeah.
hear that too, especially being grown men. Like we're just kind of
Right.
like we're grown adults. We can handle this stuff more, or we're already full of it. So fuck it.
Oh yeah, dude. I I will
We
eat.
have a different way of looking at it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing too that I was thinking about when you said it. You're like, "Oh, don't eat fish more than 2 times a week." And I'm like, "What if I eat 2 meals worth of fish in one day?" Like in one
Yeah.
sitting. What does that do? Because
Yeah.
that's how I normally roll. Like we just fry up a bunch of fish, and
Hmm.
then most of the time everybody else eats less than I do, and then we're kind of sitting there. And my mom's always got the
Hmm.
stuff on a tray, and she always lines a cake pan with paper towels, and then
Yeah.
there's just a bunch
To
of
drain
fish
it.
in there, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Do you want more before I put it in the fridge?" And I'm always like, Probably." And then
Yeah. Yeah.
you're like, "I
Yeah.
don't know if I want more," and she's like, "There's a little bit of baked beans left. If you don't eat those, I'm just gonna throw them away." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm gonna need some chips." And I'm scooped in baked beans like they're dip with my fish chips.
Fish and
So
chips.
fish and chips, but my chips are fish and my dip is baked beans. But
Yep. Well, and also the two things a week was a super generalization because when you
right.
actually get into like the eating guidelines or whatever, they just go panfish and 15 and up, not trying to get pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
Fuck it. Who
Yeah.
cares? Like it
Yeah.
literally just had no limit on
Yeah.
it. I
And
just
they're
wrote down
all
no
right.
worries.
And they're all generalizations. Everything should be, at your own discretion. Try to do your research and
Yeah,
stuff because
of
it's
course.
like
Yes.
2 servings of fish out of the lake I fish, perfectly fine. 4 servings, even if they're like you should eat 2, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Where if it's like 1 serving of fish out of the Mississippi, I'm just no thank you. I'm not gonna eat that at all.
For
You know?
sure. This is totally one of those situations where what I'm trying to do is just bring this
Oh,
research to the table to say, like, hey, looky here. Here's what a bunch of research has showed. But of
yes.
course, like, it's like I'm not here to tell anybody to do fucking anything.
Right.
That's
And
not my
since
point. It's just, hey, here's some stuff. Do with it what
yeah,
you
did
will.
you have anything about parasites?
So no, the parasites was not in here other
Okay.
than it did say here's what a good fish is. And that's where I wanted you to really bring in your firsthand experience and
Oh,
that's
sure.
so you're making it perfect because signs of a good fish: firm flesh, red
Yeah.
gills, bright eyes, It doesn't smell bad. I'm like, all
Right.
these things. How does a fish coming out of the lake have any of those things?
I've caught fungusy fish before. They're disgusting. I don't even want to touch
Yeah,
them.
because to me, I'm just like, how does a fresh fish, how does something swimming around alive have any of those, have those checked off? How is that not on the list? What the fuck? So please.
Yeah, dude, there's some weird fungus stuff that happens to fish sometimes where they'll have just like crap growing on them or they get something in their gills or something.
Hmm,
I
hmm.
hate it. It's so gross. Like, I don't even want to
Oh,
touch
sure
them.
it
There's just like
is.
this weird shit growing on the side of the fish. They look like they're furry, and you're like, this
Oh,
fish
oh,
don't get furry, but it's like
yeah.
patchy. It's not like the whole fish. You're just like, something's wrong with this. So I haven't seen a whole lot of issues with that. Obviously, when you see something where the fish looks unwell when you catch
Yeah,
it, like you said,
yeah.
if the gills aren't red, like their
Hmm.
gills are bright red. I've never seen anything other than bright red because maybe
Yeah,
the gills are different color on those fungusy fish, but I don't even mess with them. Like, I'm not trying to touch them. Most of the time, I'm trying to grab a player's, grab the
and
hook and
shake
shake
that.
that thing off. I don't want to touch it. Like, I don't know what you got, but I don't want to even come close to it.
Right,
So
right, right.
it's not super common, but yeah, because most of the time those sick fish won't bite on anything. Like, there's
Oh, I
something
never
wrong with
thought
them.
about that, but like
Yeah, I've
they're
seen them
sick.
swim. Yeah, I've seen some of them swimming around like a crappie midsummer in like 2 feet of water, where you're like, why are you here? And then you look at them closer, and you're like, oh, you're dead. Pretty much, you're just a
Oh,
zombie. You are
oh,
swimming, and you don't know where you are.
ew.
And yeah, yeah, there's some weird stuff out there sometimes. Um, But when you fillet the fish, because sometimes the fish look perfectly healthy, everything's fine with them.
Like
Look at the meat.
the things that we said, like it feels good. It's got red gills, like
Yeah, it
even tight.
feels.
It was tight. They described it as like tight scales. I guess the scales can get flaky.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Where, like,
So
yeah, if the scales
yeah.
are coming off weird,
Hmm, hmm.
probably has something wrong with it. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
make sense.
So it checks all the good boxes, and
Yeah.
then you start filleting it, and
So when
what
you
happens?
fillet it, sometimes like look at the meat itself because the fish can seem perfectly fine and still have parasites
Mm,
that actually
right.
get into the meat.
Mm,
Sometimes there's like little wormy things in there. I've only seen pictures of them for the most part. I think one
okay.
time I saw a fish that had it where you kind of see, and they're almost the same color as the meat. It's not like they hide
Damn.
super well. You just have to look at the meat a little while. You
Okay.
know, if
Hmm.
it's nice and clean and you don't have to worry about it, you're good to go. But there's
Yeah.
other times where when I was growing up, I was told they were iron deposits because sometimes most
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
most likely you catch them in bluegill and you cut the fillet off and there's little black dots all over the place.
Yep.
Now, we were talking about like pregnant people and stuff, younger
Hmm,
people.
hmm.
Oh, excuse me, that one came out of nowhere. But I would try to not probably, if you're pregnant or developing just to be
Hmm,
safe,
hmm,
especially like with a pregnant person. No
hmm.
reason in risking that, but those little black things are technically parasites. Even though
Mm.
I've been told that they are iron deposits, I think people say that to try to make you at ease because the thing is, when you cook the fish properly, those
Yep.
little tiny black parasites die with the meat. So
Yep.
you're eating parasites, but they're dead.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's, I guess, up to your discretion and how much you can
Right.
handle. Like, if you're okay
Right.
with it, like,
Right.
it's just like a micros. Yeah, I suppose I would say microscopic. It's big enough to see the black dot in the white flesh, but you
But you
can't
don't
make
actually
out that
see
it's
the
like
like
a
animal or
bug or whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, if you look at it
Yeah.
under a microscope, I don't know what it looks like, but it dies off when you cook it, and
Right.
it's safe to eat after you eat that. But
Hmm.
yeah, there are some parasites that are like, don't ingest this even when the fish is cooked properly, and those are like the clear, or not the
Right.
clear, but the like when the worm where it looks like a worm.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff like, do not mess with
Don't.
that fish. So I guess rule of thumb: if you're pregnant, do your research on what you're eating before you eat it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Especially if
good
you're
point. We've
catching,
been through that, right,
yeah,
with our
especially if
wives.
you're catching it yourself,
Yeah, yep, yeah,
There's
especially if you're going out and harvesting it, like, whether it be, birds or deer or it doesn't really matter, but
yeah,
for sure,
and then
know what you're getting into, right?
yeah,
Like,
know what you're
don't
getting
just go
into
and
and know where it's sourced. That's the same thing as like when you're eating meat at like a Walmart or whatever.
yep,
Those Some of that stuff comes from like big uh plant sites
mhm,
where there's cross contamination possible, and
mhm,
it's like when you cook it, everything's fine. That's why it has the instructions on it.
right,
But
right,
some places,
yes,
because it's coming straight from the source and everything's been clean,
yeah,
that's the stuff where you can go eat beef tartare, where
that's
it's
what I was
raw
gonna say,
beef
dude,
and
hell yeah,
it's
you got it.
okay because the
Yep,
people took care of
yep.
everything while they were making it. So,
While it was yep, it just wasn't pushed through like a plant worker, and that it's nothing against those, we need those to feed America, but the point still stands is that, like, if you're gonna eat that kind of thing, know where it came if you're gonna eat that
right.
meat raw, know where it came from in the
Yeah,
first place
yep.
sort of
Yeah,
situation.
and I was gonna say, like, it's the same thing. Like, when you're going to a high-end sushi restaurant, you have faith that their meat is top shelf, good quality, it was taken
Right.
care of because they
Yep.
know
Yep.
that if they feed you something wrong, everybody's gonna get sick,
Yep.
and if everybody gets sick, the reviews are gonna be terrible, like, it's
Yep.
not
Right,
gonna
and
go over
nobody's gonna
well.
come back.
Yeah,
Yep.
but even myself, knowing that I caught the fish and pulled it out of the, like, lake,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
still not okay with just eating like raw bluegill because I don't know all
Yeah.
the rules. I have faith in the people at the sushi restaurant that they know what they're doing because I don't.
Yeah.
When it comes to raw fish, I don't.
Right, right. Actually, dude, that is something that quick we'll go over here at the end because of the pickled pike bites that I have on
Mm,
the list. Want to do
okay.
pickled pike bites, and pike, bigger fish, predator fish, right? Like, has the
Hmm.
ability to build its way up. So whatever, okay. We know what we're looking for when it comes to eaters anyway. But the point is like, cook 145 or 0 for 48 hours, even in pickling, is what I read. So pickling is just putting it in a high acid thing, right?
Yeah.
And basically
Yep.
letting the acid do the work. That's what steak tartare is.
Oh, okay.
Steak tartare, you technically are supposed to acid cook it, right? Like, you put a bunch of lemon on it or vinegar or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah. All
Like,
right. I get it.
that's
Yep.
what my understanding of most, if I haven't done steak tartare before, but my understanding of most of them is that. Um
Sure.
so the short version of what I'm trying to say is we're going to do pickled pike bites, but
Yeah, dude.
I guess we're gonna have to freeze that motherfucker first. It did say
Okay.
you could simmer it too. You could simmer it in, because when you make pickling, liquid, you typically boil it anyway or get it simmering for a while.
Sure.
And it's just like, well, throw it in that then. And I'm like, I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Just let it cook in.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of just let it
Yeah.
poach in the liquid itself, and then you pour you. So we're gonna do a video on it, dude. I really think we
Okay.
will. I think we can do this video, but
Yeah,
I'm
for
just glad
sure.
that you brought it up that way, because I think it's a good thing to end on, because I wanted to bring it up, because even 0, right?
Right.
It means that it's been handled well. So in my
Yeah,
head, I'm
because
kind of
that's
like, man,
still
I might eat a frozen bluegill. I might eat raw
yeah.
bluegill if it's been frozen for 48 hours.
If it's been frozen, that's I never even thought about it like that, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that they say with that's what they say about your blue jeans. Like that cuz
What?
like bacteria can like cause the stinks and stuff. And
Oh yeah,
because
I've
of
heard
the
this
like
before.
the denim's not supposed to be like washed or whatever, so your
I've
high-end
heard about
denim you're
this.
just supposed to like throw in the freezer.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that like kills the bacteria that's in your pants, and then, it's like you don't have to wash them because you killed everything in the freezer, and then you don't mess up your denim or whatever. I don't have
You don't
high-end
get
denim.
dirt on it, I
I
guess.
throw it
Like,
in the
I don't
washing
know.
machine. I don't know.
The dirt's still gonna be there. I'm just
Yeah,
saying the dirt's still gonna be there.
I
But
wear Wranglers, bro.
Wranglers can't even get dirt in them. Damn it.
Wranglers love dirt. You know what I'm saying?
They
I
get
get a
better
little
with
bit
dirt in them.
they get better with dirt. I, I they get a little bit dirty. All of a sudden, you see my Wranglers just throwing up the W. Wrangler.
Oh shit. All right, man. Well, I hope that was useful. I hope that was, you know, not scary. I didn't mean it to be, because presenting facts can be scary, but it's just like you gotta just step back from it, and it's just
Yeah.
it ain't that bad. Remember, if you're
No,
15
no,
and
no,
up and
no.
you're not in a pregnancy situation, nobody's saying that panfish are a problem.
Right.
Just
I
I
just
want, you know.
random side note, I literally was just talking to a dude about catching herring uh
Yeah,
that like run, and you just
yeah.
go and scoop them with a net, I guess. And I was like,
Cool.
did not know that that's how it works. I'm going to have to
Nope.
try that. And he says, just remember to bite the head off the first one. Kind of a tradition.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, dude, just bite the head off the first one you ever get.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you'll be all right. If it's a tradition, it's not something that's gone on for years and years because they're just been like, oh, you hear about John? Bit the first one, got that Merc.
Got murked from that Merc, yo.
No, that's fine. You're good. You can bite the head off a live fish.
Oh shit. That's awesome. All right, Tim. We're going to talk about mobile games. We've talked about Pokemon Go
Yes.
before, but we're going to talk about mobile
Mm-hmm.
games. We're going to get into, because what a thing that has become in our lifetime. I guess video games have become a thing in our lifetime. Either way, fuck it. Hit the break. We're going to talk mobile games.